One of the most misunderstood reasons why a woman may crave you but never actually contact you lies in the subtle assumption that you are no longer emotionally available, or worse, never were to begin with. It's an idea that goes unnoticed by most men, yet it sits quietly in the background of many missed connections. See, the truth is, women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to emotional energy. They don't always need direct words or actions to decide whether a door is open or closed. They read cues. How consistent you are, how present you are, and how much access you allow. If, consciously or unconsciously, you're projecting that you've moved on or that your focus lies elsewhere, that's the energy she will respond to, often without even realizing it. Sometimes the silence from a woman is not indifference, it's resignation. She believes reaching out would make her look foolish, or worse, vulnerable to someone who may not reciprocate her interest. It's a kind of self-rejection before the risk of actual rejection. And here's what's even deeper. When a woman sees that you've emotionally disconnected, even if it's just your public persona or the image you present on social media, she begins to interpret your availability through that lens. She sees your curated confidence, your busyness, your interactions with other women, and concludes that there's no space for her. So she stays silent, not because she doesn't care, but because she thinks she no longer has permission to. This is where many men fall short in understanding female psychology. You might think you're just being strong or detached to protect your own heart or build your personal brand. But in doing so, you may unintentionally be building walls that signal to a woman that she's not welcome to enter. Even when a woman is craving your energy, craving the presence she once felt from you, craving the emotional connection she quietly valued, she won't fight for a space she believes has already been filled. So she disappears into the background, craving in silence, hoping you'll notice, but unwilling to cross the emotional barrier that your apparent unavailability has constructed. It's important to remember that perception is powerful. How you carry yourself, how you manage your image, how you communicate, or don't, sends a message whether you intend it or not. And if that message says, "I'm fine without you," or "I've moved on," even if you secretly hope she'll come back, don't be surprised when she doesn't. Not because she doesn't feel something, but because she respects herself enough not to beg for a man who appears emotionally closed off. Let that sink in. If she assumes there's no seat at your table, she won't ask to join the meal, no matter how hungry she is. Another reason why women crave you but never contact you is rooted in the fear of vulnerability. Specifically, the fear of being misunderstood or not taken seriously. This isn't about weakness. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about how emotionally intelligent women protect themselves from emotional risk. She may feel drawn to you. She may think about you constantly, replaying past conversations, imagining new ones, analyzing every interaction. But none of that guarantees she'll make the first move. Because in her mind, the cost of emotional exposure, especially if she's unsure of how you'll respond, is far greater than the reward. Think about the world we live in. Women are constantly told to play it cool, to not seem desperate, to let the man chase. And while we often criticize that mindset as outdated, it still shapes how many women approach attraction. So even when the craving is real, even when the emotional connection is intense, she may suppress it. Why? Because reaching out could put her in a position where she feels powerless. And no one, man or woman, wants to feel powerless in love. But there's something deeper. If a woman believes you might not be emotionally receptive, if your behavior in the past has given her reason to question your depth or your consistency, she'll hesitate. She's not avoiding contact because she's indifferent. She's avoiding it because the fear of misreading you is stronger than her desire to reconnect. That's the paradox. The stronger the craving, the greater the hesitation, because the more she desires you, the more she fears losing her sense of control or dignity in the process. What many men fail to realize is that sometimes silence is not a lack of interest, it's a test of emotional safety. She's watching, not just what you say, but how you act, whether your energy invites trust, whether you have the emotional maturity to engage without ego, to respond without judgment. If she doesn't see that clearly, she'll stay behind her walls. She'll crave you in silence, write texts she never sends, hope you reach out first, and tell herself stories about why staying silent is safer than risking rejection. So if you're wondering why she hasn't reached out, ask yourself, Have you created an environment where vulnerability feels respected? Or have you unknowingly built a dynamic where any emotional openness from her would be met with detachment, confusion, or pride? Because if a woman can't feel safe being emotionally seen by you, she won't come closer. She'll admire you from a distance. She may even long for your presence, be transcendent, but she'll never make that first step. Let that land. A woman's silence isn't always indifference. It can be a quiet act of self-preservation. If she doesn't contact you, it might not be because she doesn't feel. It might be because she feels too much and doesn't trust that you'll know what to do with her heart. Another powerful reason women crave you but never contact you is because of a deeply ingrained societal narrative, the belief that initiating contact somehow reduces their value. This idea may seem outdated on the surface, but it's alive and well beneath the surface of modern dating culture. From a young age, many women are taught, explicitly or subtly, that a woman who reaches out first is too available, too forward, or worse, desperate. And so, even if her heart is full of longing, even if her thoughts circle around you more than she'd like to admit, she holds herself back, not because she doesn't care, but because she's been conditioned to believe that caring too openly makes her vulnerable to judgment. Now let's step back and look at the psychology behind this. For a woman, reaching out isn't just about sending a text or making a call. It's a symbolic act. It's saying, I choose you. And when that choice isn't met with the right kind of response, one that validates her emotional risk, it can feel like rejection amplified. So instead, she internalizes the craving. She masks it behind silence. She waits, hoping you'll bridge the gap instead. And this isn't just about fear, it's also about strategy. Emotional self-preservation disguised as strength. She thinks, if he really wants me, he'll reach out. He'll find me. And while there's wisdom in not chasing affection, there's also a silent pain in suppressing genuine feelings because of rules written by someone else. Rules that say being the first to speak equals losing your power. Here's where many men misread the situation. You think she's moved on. You assume the silence means indifference. But in reality, it could be her trying to preserve a sense of dignity. She's craving you, but managing her own emotions behind a curtain of stillness. She's wondering if you see her, if you feel the same pull, if you'll take the lead so she doesn't have to break the invisible rules that have been drilled into her psyche for years. What does this mean for you? It means, if you're waiting for a sign, her silence may be the sign. The absence of a message doesn't mean the absence of desire. It means she's hoping you'll be strong enough to hold space for her vulnerability so she doesn't have to carry the full weight of risk alone. So many moments of deep connection are lost not because the feeling wasn't mutual, but because two people were trapped in their roles, afraid to reach out first. Don't let that be your story. If she matters to you, make it safe for her to be real. Initiate with respect. Show emotional courage. Because sometimes the one who stays quiet is the one who feels the most. And that's the paradox of desire. It's loud in the heart, but quiet in the world. Listen closely. What she's not saying might be everything you need to hear. Another reason why women crave you but never contact you lies in the complex terrain of emotional vulnerability, specifically the fear of rejection and emotional exposure. It's one of the most universal human experiences, yet it affects women in a particularly intricate way due to societal expectations and internal emotional conditioning. You see, most women are wired, both biologically and socially, to protect themselves emotionally. When a woman feels a deep attraction to a man, it's rarely just surface level. For her, desire often comes wrapped in layers of emotion, hope, and imagined futures. So when she considers reaching out, she's not simply asking, should I text him? She's asking herself, can I afford to be vulnerable with this person? And more importantly, what will it cost me if I'm wrong? There's a psychological principle called loss aversion, and it tells us that people are generally more motivated to avoid loss than to acquire gain. In romantic contexts, this means a woman is often more afraid of losing her sense of self-respect, dignity, or emotional safety than she is excited about the potential reward of connection. So instead of risking rejection, she convinces herself to stay silent, even if her desire for you is strong. What complicates this further is the internal dialogue many women experience. If he wanted me, wouldn't he have reached out already? This question becomes a mental loop, a barrier that keeps her from acting on her feelings. She tells herself that silence is strength, that restraint is self-worth. And while there's truth in maintaining one's standards, there's also fear disguised as logic. Her craving doesn't disappear. It just gets buried beneath layers of self-protection. From the outside looking in, this can be incredibly confusing. You might think she's over you. You might assume she's uninterested or emotionally unavailable. But often what you're actually witnessing is a defense mechanism, a shield put up not to deceive, but to survive emotional uncertainty. This is why emotional intelligence in men is so underrated and yet so vital. A man who can read between the silences, who can recognize that absence doesn't always equal apathy, is far more powerful than the man who simply reacts to what is obvious. He sees what's unsaid. He understands that the heart often speaks through restraint, and he responds with presence, not pressure. So, if you're wondering why she hasn't contacted you, consider this. Her silence may not be a dismissal, but a test of safety. She wants to know if you're a man who understands the weight of emotional risk and the courage it takes to open up. Show her through your words and actions that you can hold space for vulnerability without judgment. In the end, emotional courage is the real seduction. Be the man who sees her, not just the version she presents to the world. Because when a woman feels emotionally safe with you, that's when craving transforms into connection. And connection, real and unguarded, is what she's truly after. Another reason why a woman may crave you but never reach out has to do with a quiet internal battle, a conflict between desire and pride. This is one of the most subtle yet powerful forces at play in romantic dynamics. See, when a woman craves you deeply but doesn't initiate contact, it's not always because she's waiting for you to chase her. Sometimes it's because she's wrestling with herself, torn between what she feels and what she believes she should do to maintain her sense of dignity. Let's break that down. Society often tells women that making the first move diminishes their value. From a young age, many are taught that being too forward makes them appear desperate or unworthy. This conditioning can be incredibly hard to shake, even when they're dealing with genuine emotions. So even if she's thinking about you, even if she replays your conversations in her head and checks your social media in silence, she may still convince herself that staying quiet is the more respectable choice. But here's the deeper truth. What she's actually doing is preserving her image of control. She might crave you, but if reaching out threatens her emotional balance or makes her feel like she's giving away too much of her power, she'll hold back. It's a calculated silence. It's not indifference. It's restraint, powered by pride. And this pride isn't necessarily arrogance. It's a shield. It protects her from potential embarrassment, from being perceived as weak, from possibly hearing the one thing she dreads: I don't feel the same. It's easier to stay in a position of perceived strength than to step into a space where rejection is even a possibility. So she chooses silence, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much and doesn't know if you'll honor the weight of what she's feeling. This is why some women come across as confusing or hot and cold. You'll feel their energy. You'll catch them glancing at you when they think you're not looking. You might notice them engaging indirectly, liking a post, showing up where you are, asking mutual friends about you, but never actually saying anything directly. That's pride in motion. It's desire wrapped in protective armor. As a man, recognizing this hidden layer can change everything. If you assume her silence means she's uninterested, you may miss the fact that she's actually testing to see if you'll meet her halfway. Not through games, not through begging, but through presence, clarity, and confidence. So understand this: the silence of a woman who craves you is not always a closed door. Sometimes it's a guarded invitation. The question is, can you read it? Can you respond with patience, with calm certainty, and without letting your ego react to hers? Because when you can move past the need for dominance and instead lead with quiet strength, you become the kind of man she can trust with both her desire and her pride. And in that space where craving meets emotional safety, something real can finally begin. Sometimes the silence isn't about you. It's about what you represent. A woman may crave you deeply but avoid contacting you because In her mind, you are the symbol of a future she's not yet ready to face. You stand for growth. You stand for vulnerability. You stand for change. And those things, while necessary and often beautiful, can also be terrifying. When a woman senses that being with you would demand more of her, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, she may hesitate. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because she instinctively knows that this connection could force her to confront parts of herself she's kept buried. Maybe it's her fear of intimacy, maybe it's the unresolved wounds from past relationships, or maybe it's the quiet realization that with you, there would be no room for pretense. And that kind of emotional exposure is intimidating for someone who hasn't yet fully met herself. See, it's easy to crave someone from a distance. Distance keeps the fantasy safe. Distance protects the image of what could be without requiring the uncomfortable work of what is. But proximity, real closeness, shatters illusion. It calls forth truth. And not everyone is prepared for that truth. That's why she might admire you, want you, even talk about you to her friends, but never call, never message, never initiate. Because the version of her that's drawn to you is still in conflict with the version of her that doesn't yet believe she's ready or worthy. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about internal resistance. She may see you as someone who expects honesty, consistency, depth. And if she hasn't cultivated that within herself, she'll avoid stepping into your world, even if part of her longs to. This is a difficult truth for many men to accept because it flips the script. It says she's not pulling away because you lack value, but because she sees how much value you bring. And that's a powerful shift in perspective. It reminds you that craving and contact are not always aligned. Sometimes desire hides in the shadows of fear, and silence becomes the echo of an internal battle that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with her. Now, does that mean you should wait around? No, growth is a two-way street. But understanding this can help you avoid bitterness, frustration, or insecurity. It allows you to remain grounded in your own energy while still honoring the complexity of the feminine experience. Because a woman who craves you but never contacts you isn't rejecting you. She's wrestling with herself. And the best thing you can do is to keep becoming the kind of man who invites clarity, not confusion, who holds space, not pressure, who stands firm in his value without needing constant validation. In the end, the man who inspires a woman to face herself is the man she never truly forgets. Be that man, not just for her, but for the life you're building.